Welcome to the after show. Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Mimmo, that's Mike, and that's Yianni. Welcome back to Puck Nation, episode 34. How you doing, boys?
Look at you, you're getting it right for the first time. Didn't
I
have to ask
got it right.
questions.
I got it right, you see?
Yeah, what episode is it? Yeah.
I didn't ask what it was. I got it right. You know why? I got it right because it's 34. And Austin Matthews, go ahead, give me your kicks.
Come on.
Shut your fucking mouth.
Well,
you know what happened, right?
Drouin's almost at
I don't care
34
about
points.
Drouin.
So.
I don't give a shit about
we
Drouin.
still got a hat to make to eat.
That's
No,
not
you
a
know
problem.
what? Actually, I was talking to Mimmo about that. I think the hat is a little bit too much. I think maybe we make the fans vote for like a
hot chip.
crazy challenge, maybe the hot chip challenge or something. I don't know. We'll make them do
Some
something.
habanero wing
Yeah,
or something.
something. But that I'm good with that.
We'll do
Ghost
something
peppers.
fun.
You know what? All joking aside, good for him. But I want to talk about Austin Matthews last night, guys. He hit 50, he hit 51. Actually, 51 hit him in the face.
Yes, it did.
Right? But it still went in and whatever, and it still counts, and they're all
He's
good.
having a great year, man. His
Dude,
pace
man,
is great.
unbelievable.
He's probably going to
Mike-
hit around 65, 70.
But listen, all the
Yeah.
power to him. You know what? I was telling you this off here. Dude, we were lucky enough to witness not one, but two players
Obi?
actually challenge Wayne Gretzky. When I was a kid, I'm older than you guys.
It's
Everybody
still
knows.
really early though.
No,
for
no.
Matthews.
What I'm saying is to actually give it a shot, Yianni. Nobody else even came close. These guys are giving it a shot.
We're giving it a shot.
I mean, at the same age as Ovi, he's ahead. He's like 10 or 12 goals ahead of
Yeah.
at the same point.
Let's just hope he,
Yeah, if he
Ovi
gets
had
this-
a Nick Backstrom for a very long
Yes,
time.
yes. Well, he's got Marner. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not too shabby.
Yeah,
either.
Yeah.
whatever.
But
Not
anyway.
the same type of player, but it's okay.
No, not at all. But anyway, God
Yeah.
bless him, and you can see I'm a Leaf fan, and I think what a goal scorer! Jesus Christ, what a goal scorer!
Yeah.
Is incredible. And again, thanks to our sponsors, the Rubs Barbecue, Mike Audio Technica with the mics and these things that we're using here, right?
Yep.
And the Unrivaled, the memorabilia guys. Thank you so much for
We
sticking
got some
around.
really cool stuff coming, guys.
Yeah, we
with
got some-
Unrivaled.
Yeah, we got like a little
Yep.
giveaway. I think next week or the week after, whatever. Stick
Yeah,
around for
it's
that.
coming.
Thank you. If you really like the show, go subscribe, go follow us, whatever. That's greatly appreciated. And today we have a special guest. Today we have
Yes, we do.
a gentleman who's the assistant GM of the Kitchener Rangers. Correct?
Yeah.
Mr. Jeff Kyrzakos, right? And we're going to talk to him about some minor league players and the guy, and he's coached a couple of the Habs kids too. So I want to know some stuff.
Of course.
What's going on.
Podcast from Montreal. We're not going
That's
to
right.
talk about the Habs. Shocker,
Yanni,
right?
It's not just the Montreal thing. It's you. You're here. You're at the table. So.
I know. I have to.
So
I have
without further ado, Yanni, just bring on Jeff. please.
Yes. Jeff, what's up, man?
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey guys, not too bad. Thanks for having me.
Hey man, thanks for doing this, and I hope. Well, we were talking up here. You said that it's 10, 12 degrees there, man. That's
It's pretty
crazy.
warm, yeah. It's nice.
That's
it's,
crazy.
Nice break from the snow.
Yeah. You asked us how it is here. I told you it's cold in French. That's it. It never changes here, man. It never changes here. It's always
It's Montreal
been
for
the
you.
same shit, and it'll always be the
It's
same.
actually pretty mild considering it's February. I got to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah,
That's
it
out
is.
there.
It
But
is.
yeah.
It is.
We
It is.
got
How do you
snow though,
survive
randomly.
being a Leaf fan in Montreal?
Oh my God! You know what,
A
man?
lot of Kevlar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. I've been eating this, Jeff. I'm 54. I'm gonna be 55 soon. I've been eating this since I was a kid in high school, man. My friends, my ex-girlfriends, and like, what are you fucking stupid? I get it all, man. I get it all. I get it from these guys at the table, and they're at arm's length, and I still get it. You know, honestly, I've been a fan since I was a kid, and I'm not a believer in bandwagoning and hopping on another. I don't do that. I just it's them.
Good, you're loyal.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, the only real diehard Habs fan at this table is Yianni.
Is Yianni, yeah.
I'm actually, as you can see, an Oilers fan.
Yeah.
So, but I don't get the hate that Mimmo gets for the Leafs, so that's okay.
Nobody gets the hate that I get.
Leafs
Nobody.
suck.
The Leafs don't get the hate that I get.
Yeah.
Nah, the Leafs don't suck. They have some good players.
Leave them alone. Like I was saying off air, look, dude, 34, Austin Matthews, he did it. He hit 50, 51 last night. God bless him. And I was telling them, guys, Jeff, we're so lucky in our generation that we get to see not one but two players, man, attack the Wayne Gretzky, record. Isn't that awesome?
I mean, it's a long runway to go for Austin and even,
Absolutely.
even Ovechkin. I mean,
Even Ovi, yeah.
He's slowed down. It's a significant achievement, but
Yeah.
it just shows how good you got to be for so long.
Absolutely.
For a
Absolutely.
long time.
I mean, growing up, we're like, no one's ever gonna touch that. Like the Mike Bossy thing. Mike Bossy is my favorite hockey player of all time. The 9 seasons of 50 goals. Who's gonna touch that, dude? I'm Ovi, obviously, but come on. There's so many records that you're like, get out of here. That's not happening. It's not, especially not with these kids of today. segueing to what Jeff does, right? So you're the assistant GM of the Kitchener Rangers, correct?
Yeah, assistant GM, assistant coach. So
And assistant coach. So, wow.
Yeah.
How did that come around?
To be honest, I mean, when I was done playing, I got into coaching, and I was in Mississauga for 7 years in the same role. So I just left and went to Kitchener this off season. So I got one of your boys in Edmonton, and obviously coached a couple of the Habs picks. So lots to talk about for sure.
Yeah. And obviously, the end game is GMing in the National Hockey League, correct?
Yeah, I mean, either coaching or management. Somewhere at the next level is always the goal, I think, for anyone in our league.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if you get a job with the Oilers, okay, and you work for Mr. Ken Holland, can you please get a goaltender? Please. We're one guy away from a Stanley Cup. I just please.
You took Toronto's last time. That didn't work out. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was our first mistake. Yeah.
Dude, I told you that was a mistake. I told you that was a mistake. A guy that lives in his own head. There's a problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Let's get back to this. Jeff, I wanted to ask you something. Okay, being that you're involved with all these youngsters and whatever, all the young kids coming up and whatever, all this nonsense that's been going on with the World Juniors in 2018, and others talking about there's other teams that's been going on for years and years and years and years. I wanted to know something. Okay, in your opinion, where does this? So let me phrase this properly. How can this change? Where would it start? Is it these kids are like the parents at home? Is it these coaches that they have in the minors? Should the coaches get paid? So we have guys. Should they go through a screening? Like when you go for like a regular job, right? They check all your background. They check where you've worked. They talk to your old boss, whatever. Should they get paid? Where does it start? So these kids, let's just say, will get into less trouble. Kids are kids. They're gonna get into trouble whether they like it or not. Where do you think it should start?
Yeah, obviously a loaded question. I think it's hard to definitively answer that until we know exactly what happened. I think a lot of us think we know what happened, but
absolutely right.
I coached one of the players involved. It's certainly there were no issues when he played for us, but it was. I think at the end of the day, until we really know what happened, it's hard to comment. But I also know that it's not germane to just hockey, right? And hockey seems to get obviously it's the biggest thing here in Canada, so it's going to get put under the microscope when something happens. But I know that for myself, I would put up the hockey player and the athlete against any other sport in the world in terms of quality people. There's so many good kids and people in this game, and I think unfairly the exposure of maybe some of the bad things gets put to the forefront. But we don't see enough of guys doing hospital visits and making donations. And,
right.
He's absolutely right on that.
All the wonderful things guys in our 100%. Game do. So if it did happen, as has been alleged, obviously it's a deplorable thing to happen. But I'm definitely willing to reserve judgment until we hear the full story in the court of law on that. So I mean, at the end of the day, I think you're right. Kids are going to do stupid things. It's about managing them. I think there's some stuff from a parental standpoint, and there's obviously stuff from a team and league standpoint. I know our guys now go through lots of training, extensive training. They would probably argue too much. But I think it's just the next step in society these days in terms of, it's not checking boxes, but it's making sure these guys are prepared for the world we live in today. And I think a lot of societal issues are at the forefront due to social media and media coverage in general. And, I wouldn't sit here and pretend that this stuff didn't go on 20 or 30 years ago or 40 years
Absolutely.
ago.
Absolutely.
Sure did. It just wasn't talked about.
It just wasn't.
And that doesn't make it right. You're right. It certainly doesn't make it right. But, with regards to the specific World Junior case, I mean, I really, until they're innocent or guilty, for me,
I'm not trying to pass judgment.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, if these kids are brought up in a certain way,
How could it be avoided?
how can it be like it'll never be 100% avoided? But like, I'm just saying, like, I remember when I was coaching, whatever. The only reason I had I played 20 some odd years, right? And every time I had a coach, and I played in double letters and whatever, right? But it was always a guy that could be there at 6 o'clock. You know what I mean? It was never a guy that went through, like extensive training or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it was always so and so's dad could be here at 7 o'clock. He was going to coach this team. You know,
I think
could
now
they change that?
Yeah, there's a lot more hoops you got to jump through to be a coach, and for me, I think it's really just about, especially once guys get to our level, they get out of minor hockey, and they're in the spotlight. They're World Juniors or they're NHL draft picks or they're whatever it may be. I think it's getting them to realize that it's never really off for them. So when they leave the rink, they're still a member of whatever hockey club. They're still a draft pick of whatever hockey club, and they're always representing.
You should represent, yes.
Right, and so they got to be real cognizant of that. If they're out for a night on the town or whatever it is, that has to be in the back of their minds, and especially given social media and cell phones, and cameras, and all that, it takes one stupid lapse in judgment,
stupidity,
to kill you in terms of your perception. There are incidents where I don't feel bad for the kids because it was stupid and they weren't using their heads, and then there's incidents where kids kind of get raked over the coals, and I do feel bad for them because I'm sitting there on, not only in hockey but in all walks of life, we've all done stupid things as youngsters, and now these guys are getting canceled or not afforded a second chance just because of the era they live in. So I think there's a long ways to go in terms of them recognizing where we're at in society, and also, being a good human and doing the right thing goes without saying. We want to teach those values to our players for sure.
Very well said.
I totally agree, Jeff. But I just want to talk about you mentioned the media, not social media as much as the media.
The media, yeah.
And there's a lot of sensationalism happening with this stuff. Of course, everyone rushes to judge people in the court of mass appeal, let's say, and the mob mentality, which I never really agreed with ever. However, it just seems to me that seems to be the trend now, and the unfortunate reality of that is it seems that there's so many headlines this year about everything but the game. Like whether it's Corey Perry, whether it's this, whether it's that, there's so many different things. And
hockey's like become backstage.
It's becoming like a soap opera, and it's kind of taking away from the game itself. And I'm not saying that these things shouldn't be noticed, but I think the sensationalism put into it and the rush to judgment and things like that have really kind of overshadowed the game itself. And it sucks because hockey was never like that. That was something we would see sometimes in the NFL. That was something we'd sometimes see in the NBA. But hockey was always kind of a little bit more of a classy game in a way. And it seems like now it's just becoming this zoo of controversy, and it's killing like a great game.
It still is a classy game. I mean, I'll sit here and argue with anybody. Being in it, as a guy who played in the league I coached in 20 years ago, I see the differences in terms of improvements in all areas and all facets. And the unfortunate part is we have people taking shots at our game and our leagues from all over the place. And it's people who really have absolutely no idea what they're talking about.
That's right.
And it's tough to read. And the real unfortunate part is when they take shots or they bring something forward or a lawsuit comes forward or whatever is alleged becomes people's perception of reality. Reality becomes their perception. And I think that's too bad because in a lot of cases, some of these narratives are very false. And it's a shame because people lend credence to it by giving it exposure and press. And for me, if I'm covering something, I know 100% for certain that it's fact and it happened. Okay, no problem. But we got a lot of speculation on alleged activities all over the hockey world.
Yeah, you see, that's one thing that we as a podcast don't like to do. everybody was jumping on the whole Corey Perry situation and pushing that rumor. I don't believe in that shit unless we have fact. We're not a fan of that.
Exactly. I ain't no judge. I ain't no jury. I ain't no. Get it.
Like even Bobby Ryan. We had Bobby Ryan on here the other time. We don't like to go into the past and the bullshit. Keep it positive. The world is already a negative place. Let's keep it positive.
No, that's right.
I love Bobby. I played with him in Owenstown for a couple of years.
That's why I mentioned him.
He's a great guy. He was a fantastic guest, actually.
Great guest. Great guest. Let's jump into something that's a little bit more positive, okay? Sure. So, Jeff, I'm sure you see all these kids today, man, right? So you saw, the Connor Bedard. Is he the real deal?
Yeah, he's outstanding. His skill is otherworldly. I mean, a couple of our guys in Mississauga last year played with him on the World Junior team.
Yeah.
And one of them was drafted by Chicago. He's something that he's a generational talent. So
he really is.
Yeah, you got Bedard and McDavid and guys like Crosby. It's like he'll be fun to watch for a long time.
McDavid, so McGod. That's Mike. Man, you're so lucky. You had him
and Gretzky.
You got Matthews. What are you complaining about?
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying McDavid.
What should I say? We got Slavkovsky. I mean, it's great, but
So who's the next one, Jeff? Who's the next one? Who do you see coming?
Who do you see I don't know. I know his cousin out west is having a pretty good year as a 16-year-old in the WHL.
Are you serious?
Yeah. LJ Mooney?
No. Bedard's cousin, I forget his name. Look it up. If you Google it, he's tearing the WHL apart.
Oh my God! Another
LJ
one.
Mooney is
another one.
The other one, Logan Cooley's cousin. Sorry.
Oh my God!
Mistake that.
That's what we need. Another one. Another one of these little. Yeah. What a rat! He's incredible. Yeah. He's so good. God, he's so good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so that kind of brings me to something that I wanted to ask you. It's a little bit, but question. It's something I've always wanted to ask somebody in the minor leagues, especially someone who's team building. Now, you got guys like Connor Bedard. You have these other superstars, whether it be Celebrini, whether it be any of these guys that are Philip Massar on your team. And you're trying to... I realize that the ultimate goal here is to get these guys into the NHL eventually. And I realize it's all about their development. But at the same time, you have an organization you're running. And you're trying to make a winner there. So how difficult is it when you've got these superstars, you got these star players on your team, and your team's doing well, and it looks like you're going to make a run at the championship, and all of a sudden, he gets called up. You know what I mean? And so now,
how do you go through that?
You're a superstar. that guy goes, and all of a sudden, you're like, well, there goes all our
time to rebuild.
So how do you, as a GM of a junior team, try to build a winner while with keeping the players' best interests at heart, but still trying to make a winning team?
Well, I mean, I do think the two go hand in hand. So development of players attracts good players. So yes, there's a draft, but it doesn't mean guys have to report. So I think running a good organization, developing players ensures that you get the best players at the end of the day. That's for starters. We can't control what NHL teams do and if they take their guys early or not. We have a pretty good idea, so you kind of build from that standpoint, knowing that either you have a 4-year window with a kid or a 2-year window with a kid.
You plan accordingly.
Yeah, like we have a couple guys here this year who are obviously top end guys. Machar being one of them, a guy we didn't necessarily count on coming back. So I think they went all in last year, thinking that was their shot at it, and then. Fast forward to this year, we get some guys back we weren't expecting, and then we get Carson Rakoff, who's a second-round pick to Seattle. He's leading the league in goals, and now you have kind of two superstar players, and so it's nice to have a plan. It's nice to have a 5-year plan in this league, but it changes every week. So you got to be able to adjust on the fly, and I think if you focus on development, you're always going to have competitive clubs, and then you got to recognize when it might be your time in your window, and that's kind of when you jump and try and push your chips in.
Being from Montreal, and we have Yianni here as a big Habs fan. You coached one, and you have one now, right? So, not former, but future Montreal Canadiens. So you had Owen Beck, right? You had Beck, did you not?
Yes, I did. I had Owen. And then we traded him last year at the deadline to fast forward our rebuild in Mississauga. But I love Owen to death. I still talk to him a lot. He's a great kid. He's going to be a fantastic NHLer. I know he's a sponge in terms of trying to soak things up and get better.
Awesome.
I know when we first got him, he really wanted to be the best at faceoffs, and it was something we worked on every day. And he's pretty elite in that category. And I was happy for him last year. It was New Year's Eve, and he didn't make the World Junior team. And New Year's Eve, we got a call from James Boyd, who was the GM of the under-20 team for Canada, and I was at a wedding, and Owen was at a team gathering, and it was, hey, can you go pick up Owen and get him to the airport? He's flying to Halifax, and I was pumped for him because he deserved it, and later last year, he obviously got into his first NHL game, which was pretty cool. But he's going to have a good long career because he's a guy who will adapt, and he can play many roles. He'll kill penalties. He'll be a really strong, middle six kind of player, I think.
So exactly what Montreal.
It's exactly what the Habs want
for
right, Yianni?
God knows how long. It's
exactly
Saku Koivu days, probably.
That's exactly what the Habs want. And the Massar, I mean, he's all buddy with Slavkovsky, and you see the run he's on lately, right?
Yeah.
Man, do you follow, Jeff? Do you follow a little bit, or the NHL guys?
Yeah, of course I do. So,
he's been on a tear, man. Last 7-8 games, he's been on a tear. I don't know what he's doing tonight against Pittsburgh.
Last night he was so-so. He was one of the better players on the ice. I was there.
Gretzky had a bad night too every once in a while.
I
think it happened twice.
I saw he signed off in his interview with a little French at the end, so that's
well, there you go.
It's a win, huh? It's a win.
How's Massar doing? He's doing good?
Massar is Philip's a fantastic kid. When he got reassigned to us kind of early October there, we weren't sure what his attitude would be or how excited he would be about being back in the OHL. He was amazing. Like leading up to World Juniors, his attitude was excellent, and there were things that Montreal and ourselves wanted to develop in his game, I guess. And certainly he put a lot of effort into making that happen, and he was on a tear. He went to World Juniors, and a lot of those guys love going to play for their home country, especially the Europeans.
Of course, yeah.
So there's a bit of a letdown when they get back. He had a quiet couple weeks when he got back, but we've been on him about more straight lines because that's more North American. That's how you got to play in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, it's different.
We had him on the wing with Rakoff, and he was at times he was like a rover. He'd end up all over the ice. So recently we put him in the middle, and he's been outstanding, playing up and down the middle of the ice. We got him with another NHL first round pick in Edouard Chalet, and they're starting to find some chemistry together. Obviously, they speak the same language, even though one's Slovakian and one's Czech. But Philip's been great. He's been a huge surprise for us because we didn't necessarily expect to have him back. But we're trying to do everything we can to make sure when next season starts, he makes a good run at Montreal or can have a real productive year in Laval.
Amazing. I wanted to ask you something. You mentioned that's what Montreal wants. That's what you guys want. How does that work? Like, do you have meetings with, let's say, with Marty St. Louis? Do you have meetings with Kent Hughes and say, listen, we need this kid to become one of these guys? And you guys like actually meet and decide that, or is it just
So Kent, when he gets reassigned, Kent will have a conversation with our GM, Mike McKenzie, and basically let them know what's happening and what their thoughts are for him. But we're in constant contact with their development teams for the NHL prospects. So awesome. Their guys will come in and they'll watch games, watch practices, they'll work with our guys, but they're in constant contact with us. They watch a ton of video. So there's dialogue between us in Montreal for Machar or us in Seattle for Chalet and Rakoff or whoever it is. There's lots of dialogue there.
I always wondered that. I'm like, is it the coaches that call these guys and say, listen, he needs to work on whatever, face-offs. He needs to work on, whatever, the northeast or whatever, the north-south game or the whatever, east-west. I always wondered that. I'm like, who?
It's kind of like McNiven last episode. Yeah. You remember he was saying that his coach was saying that he's overweight.
That was
and it screwed him in the draft.
That was terrible.
And then he got sent home at the
Go lose 10
combine
pounds.
or whatever, and he was
Yeah.
like, "You got to go lose 10 pounds, come back."
Yeah.
He's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. Don't stop at McDonald's. Don't pass go. Don't collect 200 and just go lose weight.
Yeah.
That's so mean, man. Why would anybody do that?
Well, it's development, right?
He was a pretty good goalie in our league. So
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah, he was on our last episode here. Actually, we had a really good talk with him, and he talked a bit about
Really
his
nice
time
guy,
in
too.
the juniors as well.
Yeah, great kid.
But you mentioned Kent Hughes before and all that. So here in Montreal, I'm sure you're not a stranger to the fact that up until the recent regime came in, there's been a lot of doubters, and there's been a lot of people that kind of didn't. Montreal kind of had a way of doing business for the last 30 plus years. And it seems like this new regime with like Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes is really changing the game here. And it's kind of very, very development focused. They're not really into signing the big superstar veterans. They seem like they really want to build from the juniors up. Mm-hmm. So in your dealings with them specifically, do you feel like there's been a much more open dialogue and a much more willingness to participate like in the players' development overall?
I mean, I can only speak to every situation in isolation, but I know they've been great with Philip in terms of a ton of contact about his development and his path and where he is, almost daily, weekly for sure. So, I think Toronto and Canadian teams are a different animal, but Toronto and Montreal are a vastly different animal. I think the one thing in terms of if you want to get it right, you have to develop players, number one, but two, you got to manage the expectations of the fan base. And I think that's one thing that Kent and Jeff have done a good job doing is it's like patience here. Let's, dial it back. It's going to be there's a path to get into where they want to go. It's not going to be overnight, and it's easy to get excited at some short-term success, but you can't stray from the plan. As a result of that. So I think that's where they're in good hands. They got guys they're not going to rush the process because not only do you want to create a winner, you want to create a sustainable winner. And in a cap era, that takes a lot of different things to come together.
Well, they look good, man. The Habs, they look,
Yeah. At least there is a plan now.
Yeah.
And, this is coming from an Oilers fan about the Habs, but I got to say, it's like it felt like a long time there was no plan. So now to see this, it's reassuring just for the franchise and the good of the city and just everything, the good of the sport. When the Canadians, the Maple Leafs, the Rangers, when they're doing well, the league's doing well.
Absolutely.
And the Bruins, even, dare I say it.
Shut up, Mike. Shut up.
But teams like that.
God, I can't stand them.
But teams like that.
I can't stand them.
It's good for the league. It's good for the league, and it's good for the sport.
Absolutely. Oh, man, are you kidding me? When all the original 6 teams or whatever, you know what it is, all the guys that attract, right?
Yeah.
It's like, they're doing good, the league is doing good. How do you,
exactly.
how do you feel in that? Yeah.
So I'm going to go a little bit off topic, but I saw that Biz Nasty, the guy that paved the way for the podcast game here, for Hockey Podcast, was with you guys at the Kitchener Rangers dressing room. I think he did the line reading.
Yeah, so Biz is a good buddy of mine. We played together.
Oh, that's
junior.
great.
And
that's great.
So I kind of sent him a message early in the season. I knew he was doing some Hockey Night in Canada stuff. I said, I'd love to get you to Kitchener. And, we ended up making it happen. And he didn't want to do the lineup read. And then I talked to him.
Because he's cursed with it. That's why.
We won. He was pretty good. He's had some decent results at the junior level doing the lineup reads.
It's good.
He's great.
He was awesome.
He's definitely one of the guys that paved the road. I think the podcast game, at least for sports.
Are you kidding me? Of course. All right, Jeff, you said that you're following the league, right? You're following, obviously you follow. We're going to get into the NHL now. We've been talking about the minor leagues. Who do you see this year making a nice push? Who do you see getting there, East and West?
Oh, man. You got your obvious teams. Like everyone's talking about Edmonton, and I do think if they can get some consistent goaltending, they got a really good team. Vancouver's been good. I think it's uncharted territory for them. They're having a great season. They might get into the first or second round. It might be a lot for them, like it's been for Edmonton in the past. Whereas Edmonton might be able to get over the hump. Yeah. I really think the sneaky team in the West though is Dallas. I love
Yeah.
I love so much about them. They're a pretty complete team.
Big.
There's not many.
They play
There aren't
strong.
many
They play
holes.
tough.
Yeah, they play a
Heavy.
great brand of hockey, and
Yeah.
they have a lot of Canadian Hockey League guys on their team. And I know I'm biased, but if you look at the Stanley Cup champions every year, they're dominated with Canadian Hockey League talent.
Well, look at last year, and look at the year before.
Yeah.
You know, okay. You know, we were talking about it last time, and I'm like, obviously the Dubas thing because he went to Pittsburgh and whatever. I mean, seriously, and I'm not just saying this because of Dubas. Pittsburgh, there's this whole thing happening now where they try to give a one last kick at the can, right? Dude, and I said this at the beginning of the year, Mike. Remember, they have like 7 players over 30. Okay, 7. In the league today, and the speed of it today, I said then, and I'm going to say it again. It's tough, man. You can't hold this, right? This is my question. Does Dubas break it up? I mean, how do you go to a Sidney Crosby and say, listen, dude, we have to move you, and not get punched in the face?
He probably should.
Really? You think
break
so?
It up. It's so hard. I mean, that's why they take another kick at the can, because Sid's obviously so special. And he's been so special for so long in this game.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's the guy to move, to be honest, unless he asks to move.
Absolutely.
I think there's other guys there who you can move, and
still doing it, man.
Certainly restart a rebuild. Yeah, he's been fantastic this year, and I think he's a guy you owe it to him. You know, he's 3 cups. That's basically a guy you say we're only trading you if you want. You know,
Penguin for life, right?
Other than that, you can retire as a Penguin. There's guys who you can, there's Malkin and Letang and whoever. There's Gensel. There's tons of guys who you can move to kind of kickstart your rebuild.
The whole Carlson thing. What the hell was he thinking, man?
It seems like a redundancy for me. Like, you got Letang. But
I thought it was going to be crazy.
He comes off a really special year. Obviously, it's hard.
Norris.
It's hard to turn down the intrigue of bringing him into the fold, no matter what team you're running. So, hindsight's 20/20, right? It's
obviously.
So it hasn't gone great for Pittsburgh, and but the one positive for them is that they do. Now, if they decide to try and add, they could be in a world of trouble. But the one positive is if they do sell, they have a lot of assets that are worth a lot. So
yeah, because look, I mean, they did win the 3 cups, right? And that's what happens. You win the cups, you basically beat up your team, right? You trade for assets, and you have no more first rounders, no more second round. Mm-hmm. Look at us in Toronto. Well, us in Toronto. You know what I mean?
You never won.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying we've been trying and failing. Don't get me wrong.
I get it.
But you have no second round pick now for the next 3 years. Now what, right?
Yeah. Well,
now, if they want to go get whoever they want to go get, you're gonna have to give up, man.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, speaking of that, just the segue right there, because Jeff, you're in Kitchener, right? So obviously you're right in the Leafs' backyard.
Yes.
So, how do you feel, Mimmo's biases aside, about the Leafs and their actual chances or lack of chances?
0 chance.
And their whole cap management thing with all these $11 million contracts here, there, and everywhere.
12, but who's counting?
That has been like a really big topic of conversation on this show with many people. And I'd love to get your take, because you're actually there. You're in the market. You're dealing with the organization. So you probably have a lot more insight than we do. So I'd love to hear what you think.
First off, I still live in Mississauga, so I commute to Kitchener every day. So I'm like 20 minutes from downtown. My family has been season ticket holders with the Leafs since
awesome
72. So I used to love going to games at Maple Leaf Gardens. And I was a big Leaf fan when I was a kid. And I think as you grow out of it, as you get older in the game.
As you grow out of it, Mimmo.
How'd you do it, Jeff? How'd you do it?
So I mean, when you're involved in this game at a certain level, it's like you stop becoming a fan of an individual team, and it's just kind of it's what you do.
A hockey fan, yeah.
If you put a gun in my head and I had to see one team win it, I'd love to see Toronto win it. But I don't live and die by their results. And I think they have some special players, but they have some significant holes. And I hate to say it, but they're probably one more year away from being able to have the flexibility to fill some of those holes.
That's the key word. You see, flexibility. I think even next year we're going to be in more.
Next year, it'll be the year after when you still have Matthews and Nylander and those guys.
Yeah, and they're
You
probably
might-
re-up Marner and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, but Tavares' 11 million can come off, and that can
Oh,
and
my
the cap
God.
going up can provide some flexibility. So I think
Yes.
listen. Any team can catch lightning in a bottle and get hot, and
And vice versa. Look at the Bruins last year.
we've seen LA and win their cup there in 12 and 14.
Yeah.
12 was a magical run by a team nobody expected.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's certainly possible, and I think you look at a team I think if New Jersey gets a goalie and they sneak in somehow, they could be one of those teams.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Florida has to be the front runner right now with the way they're playing.
Oh my God, what a
They're
team!
beating you on the scoreboard, and they're beating you in the alley, and it's personally.
How about the Bruins, Jeff?
The Bruins just keep doing it. It's so hard to count them out because they're. You lose Bergeron and Krejci, and it's
man.
There's a culture there that's outstanding, and that's the reason why they're so good every year.
I said it at the beginning of the year. I'm like, how are they going to do this? How are they going to without? No, Krejci's gone.
You remember you said Pavel Zacha who?
Yeah, I said who's what's his name? Morgan Geeky. I'm like, how are they going to do? How do you replace Bergeron with that? And they have, and they've been phenomenal all year. I mean, they're in a bit of a little downfall now, right? But they won. They beat you guys last night, right? Mm-hmm. But they're still there, man. They're still there. They're still going to challenge. I don't know. And in the West, I'm not sure. I'm thinking Colorado, like usual, right? But even them, I think, I don't know, man. Goalie maybe?
Nikushkin's a big loss for them.
Yeah, no kidding.
Huge loss.
No kidding.
But we saw it last year in the playoffs. So.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Mike, you guys, I've been telling you for years, bro.
Goaltending.
You need the goaltender, man.
You already mentioned it. I said it.
You got to call Kenny Holland and say, listen,
Sorry, Jeff, get the job with Kenny. Let's do this.
Bring the cup home to Canada.
that'd be so good.
There's a pretty good goalie about 3-hour drive south of Edmonton that I heard is available.
Yeah.
And I'd be all for it.
Well, that whole team is available.
Markstrom.
Yeah.
If you wait a couple of years, there's a pretty special kid coming up in the OHL. He's we drafted him 7th overall in Mississauga, but he's far and away the best goalie prospect I've seen in the last 10 or 15 years.
Who's this? Wow. Who's this, Jeff?
His name is Jack Ivankovic. His dad was an NHL pick. His dad played in the OHL, and Jack's he's outstanding. His numbers this year as a 16-year-old are off the charts in Mississauga.
Are you serious?
Wow.
Canadian kid.
He's an awesome kid. He'll probably be a world junior goalie. He won the under-17s this year. It's nice to see because Canada struggled with their goaltending development for a while. Yeah. So it's nice to see a blue chipper coming up. So
that's great, man. Do you get called when the world junior selections come up? Like, I mean, do they ask for your input at all? Or do they just say, we want this guy, we want that guy, we want that guy?
Yeah, no, a little bit. I know that Team Canada was in contact with us this year just about Carson Rakoff. And they asked certain questions like, is he willing to play a 13th forward role? Is he the kind of guy who can do it? Obviously, we thought he could, and we told them that. But there's different scenarios in terms of, hey, I know this guy has 30 goals at the time for you, a goal a game. Can he play a checking role? And they'll look for that type of input.
I don't get that. Why would they call you on a 30-goal guy and say, can he play a checking role?
Well, because they have 13 of them. It's like somebody has to play.
No, but I understand that. But I mean,
like 12 guys that can score 40.
Yeah, but my point, like, if you want an electrician, you don't call a friggin' painter. You know what I mean? Like, no, but you know what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be funny, but you know what I mean. Like,
it's
I understand because
that debate is as old as time in this game, right? If you remember the '98 Olympics in Nagano, Team Canada took Rob Zaminer.
Yes, of course I remember.
I think it's gone. It's gone full circle. Obviously, Wayne did a great job building the 02 team, and then Steve Yzerman built the 2010 and 14 teams. But it's gone full circle. You take the best players because the best players are
the old Bob Gainey.
They're ahead of the curve mentally in terms of being able to adapt and be versatile. And so I think at the end of the day, you take the best players unless there's red flags that maybe they can't adapt and play a certain role.
The old Bob Gainey way. Bob Gainey used to say that all the time. You take the best player available, whether it's drafting, whether it's making Team Canada, whatever. Best player available, you can't go wrong. How do you go wrong with the best player available, right? So,
So one thing that you mentioned just before was about how Canada's goalie development went down, and this kid Jack Ivankovic, I believe you said.
Yeah.
He's so this is kind of looking like a potential star goaltender, hopefully.
Yeah.
This is another topic that we touch on this show a few times. The development in Canada versus the United States, in the sense that it really seems like the United States has picked up their game considerably in their junior development. Now, I realize they have a much bigger population. They got a lot more money at their disposal. All these factors, I understand all that. But it just seems, if you look at the league now with the Hughes brothers and the Tkachuk brothers and the Zegras and the Caulfield and the Matthews and Hellebuck,
A lot of USA, but
like all these superstars, like the depth chart on the United States team,
crazy.
it almost seems deeper than Canada in a lot of ways. Yes, you have your Connor Bedards, obviously. Yes, but outside of that, I just feel like the United States is churning out a very high ratio of high quality players. So, what do you think is attributing to that?
They are, but they should be. I mean, and that's where the NHL going to the West Coast and going to the South, you're seeing the dividends 15, 20, 25, 30 years later with the players that are being produced. And there's a ton of players playing hockey in the U.S. They've put a lot into their development programs all over the nation. I really think that they're always going to be at the forefront of the best nations. Canada's never going to go away, though. I'd still take McKinnon and Bedard and
Any
Crosby
day, brother.
and Makar, and it's like the list goes on and on. I do think the one place we've struggled here is goaltending development for the last 20, 25 years, and it's concerning. I think you look at countries like Finland just churning out goalie after goalie, and now the U.S. are starting to churn out goalies. I think in Canada, a big change that I would love to see happen is obviously in the Canadian Hockey League, there's an overage rule. You can only have 3 overage players. I would love to see goalies be exempt from that. So you can have one overage goalie that doesn't count towards your 3, because you're looking at so many guys who you don't start unless you're like a phenom like Jack is. You don't start at 16. You don't start at 17. You might start at 18. Goalies don't come into their own until 19, and then the team has to make a decision on you as to whether or not they're going to keep you to be one of their 3 OAs. There's a prime example is he's been playing for New Jersey, Nico Dawes. He was really nothing in our league until his overage season, and he came within a hair of not being good enough to be an OA in our league. And now he's playing in the National Hockey League, having great success. So
there you go.
I really think that, amongst other things, I think that's a key thing that we could do with our elite goaltending prospects to give them some more runway.
You're not the first person that said. I think I heard Jimmy McLennan say that once. Yeah. He said the same thing. He goes, we need to have a little bit of leeway for the goaltenders. Because exactly for what you said, Jeff, they kind of seem to get into their place a little bit older than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's even a young player coming into our league, it's hard to have real success at 16. A lot of them will take off at 17, 18. Goalies are almost to a man. 18 is like early, and 19 is kind of assumed as the date when they come into their own as a goaltender in our league. So to give them only a year and a half window to prove themselves to NHL clubs is significant. So,
oh man,
I have a question for you. What is it that you guys see and you say, "Wow, I'm banking on this player. I'm jumping on this kid on the draft." Like, what is it nowadays in hockey? Like, I know it's a lot with speed now. Obviously, the game is fast, but what is it? Is it like hockey IQ?
Yeah, I mean, there's you got to be able to skate in today's game, no question. Hockey sense is you can't. It's hard to coach stupid. It really is. And I think if you can think the game, it puts you significantly ahead of your competition. So for us, when we're going out watching a guy, there's a few things. Obviously, we do our homework on the background of players and their character and their families, and those things are hugely important. We're not going to take anybody even in the first round if they're a bad kid or their family's too much to handle, we'll take someone else. But the first thing that strikes us going to a game is obviously skating and their skill, but how they read the game, how they think the game can really determine what type of player they end up being. And I think when you do this long enough, you go through a few cycles of junior players, you see what works and what ends up making the NHL and what ends up being a productive player in the National Hockey League. You start to just have an eye for, okay, that kid's going to be good, and you're pretty certain on it. So I think it's a combination of things. I think experience watching those guys, but hockey sense and skating are obviously at the forefront.
That's awesome. Jeff, it's almost time to go. I'm going to ask you one last question before we do, okay? We had Chris Nyland on a couple of weeks ago. You remember Knuckles, right?
That's I read
and I
book.
asked yeah. I asked him a question, okay? I said to him, if tomorrow somebody says, you are Gary Bettman, you are the guy who runs the National Hockey League, what do you change in the game today?
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what he said, okay? I'll tell you what he said and you think it over, right?
Okay,
he said, I send everybody to hell, and I said, the hell with all of yous, I'm putting back the red line. And I agreed with that because I've been saying that for years. Again, maybe I'm older, I'm old school, I only played with a red line. What does Jeff Kyrzakos change in the National Hockey League today?
No, I mean, I know a lot of guys from that era will say that, and it will slow the game down, which is not necessarily a bad thing for injuries and stuff like that. And it will actually allow some slower players. I'm not talking like slow. I just mean guys who are elite fast. It will allow them to play in the league. It's a consideration for sure. The horse is kind of out of the barn on the speed and fans loving the speed of the game. So I don't see it happening. I think, gosh, it's hard for me at the NHL level. I don't know. I really can't pick something out that I would change. There's some stuff at the junior level I think I would change.
Like what? Like what? At the junior level, like what?
Oh, man. Without getting into too much trouble here.
Just blame it on me, man. Everybody else does. Who cares?
Yeah, I know our leagues have a stance on physicality and, to an extent, fighting that is... They're trying to push it out of the game. It's not out of the game at the National Hockey League level. In fact, I think it's coming back, and it's always going to go in cycles, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. And I think we're doing our kids a disservice.
That's right.
If you look at, and I think it's been much better in our league this year. I will give them credit from a suspension standpoint. I think they've done a tremendous job. Guys aren't getting 10 games anymore for what a lot of people sit there and go, well, it looks like a pretty clean hit to me. So, I think the one thing we have to do is, I think we've killed players' spatial awareness in a number of different ways. But one is we've taken all the onus off the player in possession of the puck, and we've put it on the guy making the hit. And I think we're creating players who really aren't aware of their surroundings. That's one thing I'd love to change is. Sometimes when a guy gets hit, like it's a game, it's a physical game.
Physical, man.
Guys are going to get hurt. Like and I hate to say it, you don't want to see anyone get hurt. And I'm not pro-violence. I love the fact that guys are out of the game whose only sole reason in the game was to fight. I'm so happy that they're not in the game. But now,
some of them are coaching now.
In saying that, it's an incredibly competitive game, and guys are going to get heated and fights are going to take place.
Of course.
If they are mutual, I don't think it's a big deal. Obviously, you get into a sticky situation in our league with young kids and older kids, and that's why, for me, if it's mutual, it's okay. If it's a kid bullying or picking on another guy, that's not okay.
That's a different exactly.
We want that out of our game for sure. But I do think like. We've had some tough cats come through. We had a kid, Kean Washkrick, come through Mississauga. He's drafted by St. Louis. He's playing in the American League right now. He would hit his 3 fights in the first 3 games if he didn't have some sort of discipline. And I think it actually ended up hurting him to a certain extent because he would get to his limit, and guys would know that, and they know we couldn't fight back, and it would actually be it would put him in a vulnerable situation because he couldn't defend himself at times.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I am all for having a limit, and I'm all for having guys out of this game who can't play the game.
Only do that. Yeah.
I am absolutely, but 3's hard for some guys in our league. 5 or 6 might be a little more realistic, but just in general, I think the
Baby steps.
Yeah, not many guys like to do that anymore, so it's not even a huge issue. I do think that the physicality and the hits, we want hits to the head out of the game, no question. But
absolutely,
when a puck carrier puts himself in an extremely vulnerable situation, he gets hit, he gets injured, he gets concussed, and then the guy who hits him with
he's the one in trouble.
Yeah, with what is a clean hit in a lot of people's minds, ends up getting 10 or 12 or 15 games.
And that also starts the bullshit on the ice too, right? All the big scraps and all that.
Yeah.
So many times a clean hit starts that whole, that whole crap on the ice, which sucks.
100%. So I mean, for me, I'd just like to see us, and it's going to take a long time because it's taken a long time to create this. We have to make our players more spatially aware on the ice because guys are getting blown up now more than ever. Obviously, the speed of the game has a reason to do. That's a big reason behind it. But I think a lot of it is guys are just unaware.
Exactly it. You are so right.
In front of them, guys are just unaware of what's going on. I think
you are so right.
We're killing a lot of guys' hockey sense too because if you don't know what's going on outside of your little bubble, it's hard to make.
And you're going to get hurt. You're so right. I said it on this podcast. Like I said, I'm older than you guys. I actually had practices with the coaching staff when we were kids, learning how to give a hit, how to take a hit, how to not get into the corner with my numbers showing, turn around, whatever, the whole thing, right? So you're right. They need to be a little bit more aware. Because if you are, then none of this, all these clean hits, like you said in the last podcast, everything's starting off a clean hit. A guy gets blown out, yeah, but it was a clean hit.
Because a lot of these kids are unfortunately not used to it.
That's right. That's exactly
They're not used to it.
Well,
exactly
look, perfect example, Slavkovsky. At the beginning of the season, I was worried. He was getting lit up every game.
Yeah, somebody's got to tell him, buddy, head up.
But he's a lot better now. I'll tell you that.
What choice does he have? Unless he wants to get spatulaed off the boards every night.
I hate to bring up a negative thing, but I mean, like Eric Lindros learned this the hard way. I mean, head up, and that was at a time before they were getting hitting out of the game. But you're going to have a lot more of that moving forward.
That was an animal that hit him too, though.
I understand, but regardless, there's still animals in the league, and that stuff's still going to happen. And if they're not ready for that and they don't know how to take that hit,
absolutely,
you're going to have a lot of injured
I like the way he put it.
superstars.
I like the way you put it, Jeff. They got to be more aware. And the guy who's carrying the puck, he's got to be aware of his surroundings.
Yeah, we got to create some spatial awareness, and that's really for me. I'm not saying make hockey violent again. I don't want people to get me wrong. I just think that we've gone so far the other way. It's actually doing our players a disservice.
But to take the the hitting, it seems like they want to take hitting out of the game. What's the point? What's the point? But if you teach them how to do it correctly, it's not hockey. Exactly. Yeah. Teach them to do it correctly. And we'll all fall in love with the game again.
I mean, I saw Mark Methot recently on a broadcast talking about how the NHL should be the no-hitting league, like instead. You know what I mean? But he's saying that that's the direction it's going.
That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like.
And it's like I realize it's a bit exaggerated, but if there's not something done like Jeff is mentioning, we're going to get there.
That's exactly it. That's what's going to happen. They should be more aware. He's right.
Listen, man. I guess that's the long answer to my question.
Thank you so much for doing this, Jeff. Honest to God, it's a real pleasure to have you on. I was personally so interested in all these kids of today and how you guys look at them and how you grade them and whatever and the way they come up and the whole thing. And it must be a dream. And I hope to God one day we'll see you in the National Hockey League, man.
Oh,
you sound like a smart guy, man. And you want me to give the Leafs a call, or
they're doing okay right now? But no,
they're doing okay. Yeah. I'll give Shanny. Listen, Shanny's older than me. I'll take him on. I don't care. I'll tell him, get out of there, man. I got somebody who wants it. Thank you so much for doing this, man. Thank you so much. Hopefully, we'll do this again sometime. Thank you. Be good.
Thank you.
Take it easy, guys.